Hey guys, tonight we drift across dark waters toward a quiet patch of ocean where something impossible is about to happen. There's no sign of life, no birds, no boats, not even a ripple in the swell, just open sea, stretching flat and blank beneath a cloudy sky. Then you see it. At first, it's just steam, a curl, a hiss, like someone left the kettle on. But then, the surface of the water trembles, heaves, and something breaches. Black rock, molten, alive. An island clawing its way out of the ocean like it forgot it wasn't supposed to be here. And here's the kicker. You probably won't survive this. Not because the island is malicious, though, let's be honest, the earth doesn't care whether you're toasted or not, but because birth is violent. And this is an island being born right in front of you. Fire, ash, sulfur, the whole dramatic performance. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're floating on a ship without a name in a year that doesn't matter. Somewhere in the South Pacific, or maybe the North Atlantic, because frankly, this story's happened more than once. The location changes, the show stays the same. This isn't land, not yet. But it's thinking about it. You glide toward a thick curtain of steam rising off the waves. The air tastes of brine and brimstone. It sticks to your skin, turns your clothes damp, clings to your lungs like sea fog. The water's temperature spikes dramatically as you near. Beneath the surface, magma is oozing up from a fissure in the ocean floor, colliding with cold seawater. The chemical tantrum that follows birth's islands, sometimes for a few hours, sometimes for centuries. You draw closer. The ocean starts to hiss, then boil. A dull thump echoes under your feet, deafening in the silence. Then another. A shower of ash arcs skywards, as if a volcano just learned how to breathe. Now, you're not technically supposed to be this close. Scientists usually observe this kind of eruption from aircraft or satellites. But you're leaning on the railing with a mug of instant coffee, squinting through the mist as something solid and jagged rises into view. An island, born right now before your eyes. What does it smell like? Burnt eggs. What does it sound like? If you took a thunderstorm and stuffed it inside a coffee can, then kicked it. It is violent, beautiful, terrifying, and fleeting. You see, new volcanic islands are unstable. Imagine piling wet newspaper into a cone and hoping it won't collapse. That's what these things are. Layers of ash, gas, and lava heaped together, barely holding on. Some vanish within weeks, eroded by waves and weather before the world can even name them. But this one might last. Somewhere in your mind, a list starts forming. Krakatoa, Nishinoshima, Anak Krakatoa, Surtsey. Names of islands that weren't there, then were, and then either disappeared or grew a personality. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. For now, you climb ashore. The island under your feet is still steaming. The rock is black, fresh, sharp-edged like broken pottery. You crouch and touch it, feeling residual heat through your fingers. This is not land in the traditional sense. It's more like Earth's exhale, a place that exists only because the planet was feeling dramatic this week. Scientists still argue about the definition of an island. Is it permanent land above sea level? Must it support life? Is a sandbar that survives one tide cycle technically an island? Tonight, none of that matters. Because you're standing on one. It smells terrible. Your boots are melting slightly, and you wouldn't trade this moment for anything. A gull cries overhead. That's odd. Birds don't usually show up this fast, but maybe it's lost. Or maybe it's scouting for something new. You wander toward the center, up a rise of cooling rock. The ground crackles beneath each step. Some patches crumble under your weight. Steam rises from every crevice. You're walking through a place where the Earth's crust is still deciding whether to be solid. Each footfall could be your last. But hey, you've survived worse. Like that layover in Newark. The island is small, maybe a square kilometer, if that. But already it's got features. A central cone, a few ridgelines, even a splash of green where some opportunistic algae have started taking root. Give it a few weeks, and moss will follow. Then seabirds, then grass. Maybe, in a few hundred years, people. That is, if it survives. Many don't. There's a long list of phantom islands, ephemeral specks of land that winked into existence just long enough to earn a place on some poor cartographer's map before slipping back under the waves. Ferdinandia, Sabrina Island, Home Reef. They come, they go, and sailors are left scratching their heads. As you sit on a warm ledge and watch the sun set over steaming waves, you get it. The island isn't just land. It's a performance. A slow, molten theater piece staged for no one in particular. It doesn't care if you're here. It doesn't care if it vanishes tomorrow. But for now, it's here. And so are you. You wake early, before the sun even thinks about stretching over the horizon. The sky is a cold sheet of blue-black, and the steam rising from the island swirls in ghostly coils around you. Everything is still, except the ground, which hums faintly under your sleeping bag, like an animal breathing in its sleep. You stand, shake out the ash from your boots, and take a short walk along the slope. It's steeper than it looked last night. This isn't a hill, it's a volcano. A brand new one, raw and unrepentant. The central cone looms above you like the beginning of a bad decision. Your fingers trail along the ground as you climb. Rough, glassy lava flows weave among softer layers of black sand and gritty, loose pumice. The island is not made of one thing. It's a geological lasagna of eruptions, layers added one tantrum at a time. That's the thing no one tells you. Volcanoes are drama queens, always spewing, always shifting, always threatening to blow again just for the attention. And this one? It's practically a toddler with matches. You reach the rim of the crater. It's quiet. No lava today. Just a hot, empty bowl filled with swirling smoke and an occasional low grumble from somewhere beneath your feet. It doesn't want you here, but for now, it'll tolerate you. You sit, because why not, and look down at the steaming pit while sipping something that passes for tea. The smell is, let's call it bold, like someone boiled rotten eggs in seawater and then sprayed it with budget cologne. Geothermal eau de parfum. Yet, there's something undeniably majestic about it. The way this thing forced itself into existence. No blueprint, no permission, just pressure and time and molten fury. Beneath you is a magma chamber, a reservoir of liquid rock simmering miles below the crust. It pushes, strains, and when the pressure gets too much, it breaks through a weak point in the crust. Boom. New land. Sometimes just a small vent, other times a full island, like the one you're perched on now. You remember the phrase from high school science class, hotspot volcanism. You didn't care much about it then, but now it's everything. Some volcanic islands are born along tectonic plate boundaries, those big seams in the Earth's crust where plates grind against each other like grumpy roommates. Others, like the Hawaiian Islands, bubble up from stationary hotspots in the mantle. As the tectonic plate drifts slowly over that hotspot, new islands are created in a chain. Older ones erode, new ones rise. The Earth's version of a conveyor belt. Except instead of candy bars, it's angry chunks of lava. A volcanic island like this can grow at astonishing rates. During an active eruption, it might expand by several square meters per day. In the case of Surtsey, which you'll be visiting soon, the island rose from the sea in just 16 days. An underwater eruption turned airborne spectacle. Ash towers soared 30,000 feet into the air. Fishermen thought it was the end of the world. Instead, it was just geology throwing a party. You feel a light vibration. Not an earthquake exactly, more like a reminder. The island isn't done. It may never be done. You make your way back down the slope, feet skidding on loose gravel. The air is warming up now, and sunlight slices through the fog in brilliant shafts. You spot new fissures, small but glowing faintly red. They're like paper cuts in the skin of the island, fresh and bleeding heat. You pause by a lava bubble, an inflated dome of brittle crust that looks like it could pop with one wrong step. You take a step back. You've seen enough cartoons to know how this ends. Scientists still argue about how stable these newborn islands really are. Some say it's luck. Depends on the eruption, the ocean depth, the cooling speed. Others point to ash composition and wave action. A few mutter about submarine landslides and whisper about collapse zones. You just know it's not a great place to pitch a tent. As you circle the coast, you spot where the sea is fighting back. Waves crash against the newly formed edges, clawing at the fragile shoreline like they're trying to undo the whole thing. And sometimes they succeed. There have been islands that vanished overnight, built by fire, drowned by water, all before breakfast. One quirky bit, some of these sunken islands still exist, just underwater. They're called guillots, or seamounts, flat-topped relics of former islands now hidden beneath the waves. Lost cities, if you want to be dramatic. Or, more realistically, just forgotten peaks of failed continents. You sit on a flat rock and let your toes dangle into the sea. It's surprisingly warm, thanks to residual heat from the eruption. The fish haven't arrived yet. Too toxic, too hot. But give it time. Life finds a way, even here. You chuckle. There it is. The first Jurassic Park reference of the night. You knew it was coming. Overhead, a new sound. Distant, but growing louder. A low, mechanical whine. A drone. Probably some research team finally catching up with what you already discovered. You give it a wave. Let them wonder how you got here first. The sky is full daylight now. The steam is less dramatic, the island more real. It's no longer just a geological tantrum. It's becoming a place. Still dangerous, still hot-headed, but definitely here. And as you walk the still forming perimeter, a strange sense of ownership takes root. Not legal, obviously, unless you're prepared to declare yourself ruler of a puffing, half-melted island with no running water. But emotional. You were here when it was born, You saw it rise, and even if it disappears tomorrow, you'll remember this. The wind changes. It's subtle at first, just a shift in direction, a different angle on the steam, but it carries something with it, something older than this island, older than you, a story wrapped in salt and time and rumor. You blink slowly, letting your eyes rest. The black rock, the steam, the sulfur, everything softens around the edges. The present blurs. And then, quite naturally, you lie back on the warm, gritty surface of the new land and let yourself drift. And in the drift, something tugs at your memory. A whisper from the deep, carried on sea currents and tall tales. Atlantis, the most famous sunken island of them all. You're not saying this is Atlantis. Come on, you're more sensible than that. But still, the way this place clawed itself into existence feels familiar, like deja vu in reverse. You've seen stories about this before. Tales of entire islands disappearing beneath the waves. Civilizations gone without a trace. Columns and temples buried under leagues of water. The world loves a good lost island. The idea of Atlantis first bubbles up from Plato, somewhere around 360 BCE. He described it as a powerful, advanced civilization located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, the Atlanteans got cocky, picked a fight with Athens, and were punished by the gods, who sent earthquakes and floods to wipe the whole thing off the map. Poof, gone. Scholars still argue whether Plato was relaying a historical account, a political metaphor, or just vibing with his creative writing side. No one knows. But that hasn't stopped people from searching. Every few years, a new documentary promises they finally found it. Off Spain, off the Bahamas, under Antarctica, even on Mars. You roll your eyes, but also, you kind of love it. Because humans hate not knowing. We hate mystery. And a sunken island is the ultimate unresolved cliffhanger. You stroll to the highest point of your newborn island, which, let's be honest, looks nothing like Atlantis. There are no marble pillars, no gold-roofed temples, no mysterious orbs glowing with ancient power. Just scorched stone and a faint whiff of sulfur. But you can't help imagining. What if some of those old stories were inspired by places just like this? Volcanic islands that rose overnight, existed for a generation, and then, due to erosion, tsunami, or tectonic sulk, slipped beneath the sea again? That's not legend. That's science. That's geology with a flair for drama. Take the island of Thera, now known as Santorini. It was once part of a much larger landmass until a massive eruption around 1600 BCE triggered one of the largest volcanic events in recorded history. The explosion tore the island apart, collapsing part of the volcano into the sea and generating tsunamis that likely devastated nearby civilizations. Some researchers think this event could be one of the roots of the Atlantis myth. Real catastrophe, exaggerated over centuries. Like a game of telephone, but with lava. You pause at the edge of a newly cooled lava flow. The rock is already starting to crack, baked by the sun and stretched by internal cooling. In the crevices, tiny patches of green appear. Maybe moss. Maybe just seaweed tossed ashore. Life always finds a toehold, even on ruins. You lean down and press your palm against the stone. It's warm still. It probably will be for weeks. Beneath your feet, Earth is still breathing. Another tale comes to mind, less glamorous, but weirder. In 1831, off the southern coast of Sicily, an island suddenly appeared. It was the result of an underwater volcanic eruption that had been rumbling for weeks. Eventually, it broke the surface and formed a small, rocky island about 4 kilometers wide. Naturally, everyone wanted it. The Brits arrived and called it Graham Island. The French showed up and renamed it Ile Julia. The Sicilians dubbed it Ferdinandea, and the Spanish just sighed heavily in colonial fatigue. Flags were planted, threats were made, diplomatic eyebrows were raised. And then, just like that, the island sank again. Gone beneath the waves, like a kid pulling the plug on a bath toy. No one got to keep it, which in a way feels fair. The ocean gives, the ocean takes. These disappearing acts aren't just poetic, they're geologically normal. Volcanic islands often emerge quickly, but erode even faster, especially if they're made of loose ash and pumice. Some don't even last a full moon cycle. They're flashes of existence. Blink and you'll miss it land masses. It makes you wonder how many ancient sailors spotted land, charted it, and then found nothing but open water when they returned. There's an entire genre of so-called phantom islands, places that existed on maps for centuries before quietly being erased. No explosions, no drama, just gone. You smile. Earth really knows how to keep secrets. The island beneath you doesn't care about Atlantis, or Plato, or diplomatic squabbles. It just is. A temporary blip in Earth's long, moody timeline. But while it's here, it makes you think about myths, about how stories cling to real things like barnacles to a hull, and about how truth and fiction often hold hands beneath the surface. A sudden gust sends a swirl of ash across your path. It dances briefly, then falls still. You squint toward the horizon. A new plume rises in the far distance. Another island? Another tantrum? Or just more ocean playing tricks? You wipe the ash from your eyes and look again. That plume in the distance, it's not a mirage. It's real. And unlike your current molten footstool, this one's part of history. You blink, and suddenly, it's November 1963. You're on a fishing boat off the southern coast of Iceland, bundled against the wind and squinting toward a strange black column rising from the sea. It looks like a storm at first, but then it moves. It pulses. It erupts. Welcome to Surtsey, Iceland's volcanic newborn. The island that didn't just rise, it announced itself with flair. You nudge the wheel and head toward the smoke, holding your breath as the sea churns. A submarine volcano has just breached the surface, and within hours, the ocean is belching steam and throwing lava into the air, like it's in a stadium concert finale. Icelanders hear the boom from miles away. Pilots see the ash cloud from the sky. And somewhere in Reykjavik, a geologist drops their coffee and mutters, "Oh, here we go again." The eruption lasts 4 years. Not 4 days. Not 4 months. Years. And during that time, a brand new island grows from the waves. At its peak, Surtsey measures nearly 3 square kilometers, almost a full square mile of hot, unstable promise. You pull alongside the coast in a tiny rubber dinghy, carefully, because one rogue wave could send you bobbing straight into a lava flow. The air smells like burning tires and hard-boiled eggs, but you're too fascinated to care. The rock here is still hot. You can feel it radiating through your shoes. And the sounds, the island talks. Crackles, pops, groans. Like it's telling the sea, I'm not going anywhere. Spoiler alert, Cersei did stay. Mostly. See, this one was different. Where most islands born from volcanic activity crumble quickly under the relentless abuse of waves, Cersei had staying power. Partly because the eruption built solid layers of basalt and tuff, and partly because Iceland declared it off limits. No tourists, no buildings, no ice cream stands shaped like Viking ships, just scientists and puffins. Which, let's be honest, is a pretty great combo. You step ashore for the first time, not in 1963, but now, in your own dreamlike timeline. The rocks are still jagged and sharp, but cooler. The landscape is lunar, barren, beautiful. Wind-carved sculptures of lava twist in abstract shapes around you. But there are signs of change. In a shallow depression near the center, a delicate green fuzz clings to the soil. Moss. That's usually the first wave of colonization. Mosses, then lichens, then maybe a grass or two if they're feeling ambitious. One quirky thing scientists discovered here: the first plant to successfully root itself on Cersei wasn't something poetic like sea lavender or wild thyme. It was a tomato, courtesy of a rogue seed and bird droppings. Classy. You stroll toward the coast, careful not to disturb the fragile new life blooming at your feet. Ahead, a flock of puffins erupts from a rocky outcrop, squawking in alarm. You freeze, momentarily guilty, as if you've trespassed on sacred ground. And in a way you have, because Cersei isn't just land, it's a living laboratory. Since 1965, it's been one of the world's most closely observed islands. Every scrap of plant life, every seabird nest, every new fungal spore gets logged, sampled, debated. No human habitation, no agriculture, no invasive pets, just slow, careful science. Scientists still argue about what makes Cersei so ideal. Is it the isolation, the variety of soil types, the regular visits from seabirds acting as winged gardeners, dropping seeds and poop in the occasional crusty feather? Or is it just luck? You wander toward the western edge, where sea cliffs drop into foam and chaos. This side of the island is losing land fast. Since its peak size in the late 1960s, Cersei has been gradually eroding, nibbled away by wind and wave. But enough of it remains, enough to still be. Geographers refer to this process as coastal regression, but you just call it nature doing spring cleaning. What the volcano gives, the ocean eventually takes back. But not yet. You sit on a ledge warmed by sun and stone and pull out a flask. Whatever's in it tastes smoky, which may or may not be because you dropped it earlier into some sulfur vent. Around you, the island breathes. Not literally, but almost. There's a rhythm here, a quiet pulse. For a moment you imagine Cersei as a person. A grumpy, introverted Icelandic grandmother. Doesn't want visitors. Hates questions. Probably smells like fish stew and glacial dust. But she's proud of what she's made. And what she's made is rare. Only a handful of people have ever set foot on this island. Even fewer have stayed more than a day. You're in strange company. Geologists, botanists, bird watchers, the occasional rogue tomato enthusiast. But you're welcome, in a way that transcends rules. You're quiet. You don't take anything. You don't even leave footprints. Well, not on purpose. And in return, Cersei tells you things, whispers really, about how land can be young and old at once, how the earth never really stops experimenting, how chaos can be a kind of gift. As you trace your way back toward the boat, something strange happens. You find yourself feeling protective. You want this island to last. You want the moss to thrive, the puffins to nest, the cliffs to hold. But you also know the truth. Nothing here is permanent. Not the cliffs, not the moss, not even the scientists' best theories. Everything shifts. Still, you turn for one last look at Circe before setting off again. It's not sinking. Not yet. But even if it does, you think, she'll do it with dignity. You sail away from Circe under a sky smeared with soft gray clouds. The sea gentle now, as if it too is trying not to disturb the sleeping island behind you. The puffins recede into the mist, and the dark coast fades until it's just a bump on the edge of the world. You head south now, or west. Directions are loose in this drifting dreamscape, and time is even worse. Hours don't matter when the planet is doing weird things beneath your feet. What matters is the feeling. A slow suspicion that this isn't a story about creation at all. It's about destruction. The boat rocks gently beneath you as your mind slips toward the idea of impermanence. Because for every island that rises, there's a sea trying to pull it back under. And some of those battles aren't metaphorical. Some are raging right now. You land on a thin sliver of black rock jutting into a restless sea. This isn't Circe. This is its opposite, a dying island. Or maybe not dying, reverting. Because here the waves are winning. You walk inland, though inland is generous for a place barely wider than a football field. There are no birds, no moss, just slippery rock and broken lava crust cracking beneath your boots. The air is sharp, and the wind howls like it's been waiting for someone to complain to. This is where land goes to disappear, and it's happening faster than you think. The island you're standing on is one of dozens, hundreds really, that have vanished without ceremony. They bubble up in volcanic joy, last a season or two, then erode so quietly you'd miss it if you blinked. Like the island of Home Reef in Tonga. It appeared in 2006, puffed up by underwater eruptions, and stuck around just long enough to get a name. By 2008, mostly gone. Then it reappeared in 2022, threw a tantrum of ash and lava, and started shrinking again before anyone got too attached. You step carefully along the island's edge, where waves slap at the base with more force than they should. Each splash undercuts the fragile volcanic tuff that makes up the foundation. It's like watching a sandcastle dissolve under a garden hose. Scientists still argue about how quickly new islands degrade. Some say it depends entirely on wave height and wind exposure. Others point to the composition of the eruption, whether the island is made of dense basalt or crumbly ash. But all agree on one thing. The ocean is patient and very, very persistent. You stop near a rock pool formed in a shallow crater. The water is hot, slightly greenish, and smells untrustworthy. Steam rises in gentle curls, and tiny bubbles slip to the surface. You dip a finger in, not boiling, but not friendly either. A few feet away, a chunk of cliff gives way and crashes into the surf. You flinch, even though you saw it coming. It's sobering, standing on something so temporary, a place that, within months, could be erased by wind and water. You wonder how many islands you've passed over in textbooks, how many tiny land masses once proudly stood for a moment, only to vanish before they could be visited, photographed, or even confirmed. Ferdinandea comes to mind again, the 1831 island near Sicily. You remember the squabbles. Britain planting a flag, France sketching out a future colony, Italy naming it after a king. 4 nations vying for a patch of rock that barely lasted 6 months. It sank before the ink was dry on their maps. You crouch near the water's edge, watching the waves surge in and out through cracks in the volcanic floor. There's something hypnotic about it. This tug of war between what's solid and what wants to be again water. And somewhere, deep under the surface, you know it's still erupting, still building, still trying to rise. Because here's the irony. Even as this island is vanishing, another one might be forming just a few kilometers away. You can't see it yet. No steam, no noise. But the process is happening all the time, below the threshold of human attention. The Earth is quietly, constantly rearranging its furniture. You find a high spot and sit down. From here, the shoreline looks like teeth, jagged, uneven, doomed. Some parts already lie half submerged, foamy water swirling around them like hungry mouths. The cliff where you stood 10 minutes ago? Gone now. A flat wound remains where the rock sheared away. It makes you weirdly nostalgic, like watching an old building being demolished. You didn't live there, you barely knew it. But now that it's crumbling, you're sad anyway. You look out across the water and try to imagine the island's shape in a week, a month, a year. Will anything still be above water? Will a new volcano pick up where this one left off? Or will it all slip silently back under the waves, like a secret undone? That's the quiet threat of volcanic islands. They don't ask for your attention. They don't need permission. And they absolutely do not guarantee a future. You reach into your pack and pull out a small notebook. A habit now. Each island gets a name, a sketch, a few lines about how it sounded, how it smelled, what the birds did. But for this one, the entry's already starting to feel like an obituary. You write the name you gave it. Because let's be honest, no one else has gotten here yet. Something fittingly melancholic, like Ashlight or Breakwater's End. Then you pause. You're not sure it'll be here tomorrow. The sky darkens. Not with rain, but with mood. The wind picks up, salt stinging your cheeks. The sea now loud enough to drown out your thoughts. It's time to go. You stand, brush black dust from your hands, and make your way back to the boat. As you push off from shore, a wave pulls away a section of the rock behind you. Just a little chunk, but enough. The island doesn't wave goodbye. It just continues disappearing. Your boat cuts quietly through a calm stretch of sea now. No steam, no ash, just open water and a blank horizon. It's eerie. The silence feels loud, like something's missing. You glance back once more. The island is gone. Not metaphorically, literally. No smoke, no rock, not even a ripple left behind. It's as if your mind made the whole thing up. Maybe you dreamed it, or maybe that's just how quickly the earth edits itself when no one's watching. You exhale and look ahead. There's something else on the radar, a new shape. This one's different, low, broad, too regular to be natural. You squint as it comes into focus. An outline of shallow slopes, a few scattered stones. No smoke, no heat, just a lonely reef baking under the sun. You've arrived at Ferdinandea, or rather, what's left of it. You step off onto a shallow, rocky platform slick with algae. The air smells clean, which is weird because you're walking on top of a volcano. The surface is uneven, like the remains of an old campfire, crusted with salt and barnacles. Technically, this island doesn't exist. Not anymore, but here it is. A ghost island. Born in 1831 off the coast of Sicily, Ferdinandea was one of history's shortest-lived land grabs. When it burst from the sea, erupting in full view of nearby fishing boats, the British Navy rushed in and planted a flag, naming it Graham Island. Not to be outdone, the French laid claim to it too, calling it Ile Julia. The Sicilians named it Ferdinandea after their king, and Spain sort of hovered around, probably wishing they'd gotten there first. What followed was an impressively petty international spat over a piece of land that barely stayed above water for 6 months. You climb across a ridge just a few meters above sea level, remembering the headlines from back then. Well, you know, the parchment headlines. Island war looms. New land for the empire. France claims Steamy Rock. The thing is, everyone assumed the island would stay. That's how people think. We like to believe in permanence. Cities, maps, borders. But the ocean had other plans. By early 1832, the waves had eroded the soft volcanic cone, reducing it to a submerged reef. And with that, all the flags, names, and colonial fantasies washed away too. No more empire building. No more diplomatic tension. Just another hazard for ships to avoid. You crouch near the edge and peer into the water. Just below the surface, black rock formations stretch outward in strange, organic shapes. Like lava that never quite got the memo it wasn't allowed to be land anymore. It's almost beautiful. A sculpture made by erosion. Scientists still argue about whether Ferdinandea might rise again. The volcano beneath it, part of the Campi Flegrei del Mar di Sicilia, is very much alive. It's just asleep for now. And yes, they monitor it. Seismologists track tiny earthquakes. Hydrophones listen for the telltale grumble of magma. The Italian Navy occasionally drops a sonar buoy nearby, just in case the whole thing decides to explode during a yacht race. You stroll inland. Again, inland is a generous term. It's barely a football field's worth of rocky shelf. But scattered across it are rusted metal stakes and a few stone markers. Remnants of 2,000 S-era attempts to reassert a claim in case the island ever pops up again. Italy, ever the romantic, has not given up hope. They even placed a plaque underwater that reads something like, "This is still Italy. No touchy." You sit cross-legged on a flat outcrop, staring out at the horizon. It's strange being on a place that was once headline news and now doesn't even qualify as a rock on modern maps. Ships pass it without a second glance, and yet it's still here. Beneath the surface, the same volcano that created Ferdinandea churns slowly in the dark, biding its time. No promises, no warnings, just pressure building grain by grain, like a pot you forgot on the stove. You wonder how many other islands have come and gone like this, so briefly alive they didn't make it into memory. Before satellites, before charts, just ocean and fire and silence. You stretch out and close your eyes for a moment. The rock beneath you is warm, not geothermally, but from the sun. Still, it's easy to imagine heat coming from below, waiting to push up again. The earth doesn't mind recycling its own creations. There's a certain humility in that. You laugh quietly as you imagine a grand ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new landmass, only to have it sink before anyone gets their champagne. You're not the only one amused. At one point, divers installed a miniature sculpture of Poseidon on the seafloor nearby. Part tribute, part joke. It now stands in eerie silence, surrounded by kelp and fish, like a Greek god waiting for his land back. You reach over and drag your fingers through the wet sand. It's fine-grained and dark, flecked with bits of lava glass. The kind of sand that tells you this place was born in fire and forgot to cool off properly. Then you hear it, a long, deep rumble. You freeze. It's distant, maybe just tectonic background noise, or maybe Ferdinandea just cleared its throat. A seismologist would tell you not to worry. They'd rattle off charts and magnitudes and probabilities. But standing here, with nothing but rock and salt wind, and that occasional underwater groan, you decide something else. This place wants to rise again. You're just not sure the world's ready. You leave Ferdinandea behind. Though it lingers in your thoughts like a song you can't quite stop humming. A half-sunk reminder that some places make more noise in disappearing than in existing. Now you sail into calmer waters, low golden light bouncing off gentle swells. The ocean here has no visible drama, no spouting ash or smoldering cones. It's quiet, but underneath, it's a political minefield. You don't need an eruption for things to heat up. Sometimes even an imaginary island will do the trick. The waters you're gliding across once played host to one of the strangest island feuds in modern history. Not over Ferdinandea. That was just the pre-show. This time, it's 20th century tech, military tension, and underwater sonar pings. The ingredients? A rock, a reef, a few strategically placed buoys, and the kind of diplomatic awkwardness that could only happen when nobody knows what's real. Welcome to the Battle of the Buoys. You sip from a canteen as your ship nears an unmarked zone in the Mediterranean. There's no island here, not anymore. But in the 1980s, this patch of sea became a focal point of international bickering, not unlike a group chat spiraling out of control. The main character, a submerged feature called Empedocles, a massive undersea volcano, the same one that birthed Ferdinandea a century earlier. One morning, an Italian surveillance drone picked up odd topographic changes along the seafloor. Rumors sparked. Was the volcano stirring again? Would a new island surface? And if it did, who would get to claim it? Italy, still sore from losing the last one, quickly dispatched naval vessels. France sent survey teams. The UK, ever ready to wave a flag, politely reminded everyone that they had claimed the original Graham Island, thank you very much. Spain hovered in the background, metaphorically sharpening a butter knife. Here's where it gets weird. Satellite imaging showed no visible land, but sudden sonar anomalies suggested a rise in elevation beneath the sea. The ocean was swelling. Something was happening. And so, the buoys arrived. Each country began dropping instruments. Buoyed seismographs, GPS markers, depth sensors, hoping to prove proximity, dominance, or at least plausible deniability. It was the geopolitical equivalent of licking a donut and saying, mine. You can still see the rusted base of one such marker on a passable day with clear water. It leans like a forgotten road sign in a town no one visits, a relic of a claim that never materialized. You drop anchor and lean over the boat's side. Below you, the ocean floor looms dimly, a long ridge like a sleeping dragon. The light catches strange textures, scars from old eruptions, ridges formed by cooling magma, and perhaps the beginning of something new. But for now, Empedocles sleeps. You lower a small microphone into the water. It crackles and hums with static at first. Then, quiet clicks, deep groans, faint vibrations. The earth down there is restless, but silent enough not to cause alarm. Scientists still argue whether Empedocles will ever breach the surface again. Some say it's unlikely, citing its current structure: wide, low, with no real pressure buildup. Others insist it's only a matter of time before tectonic shifts reawaken it. One particularly excitable oceanographer once called it a loaded gun under a wet towel. Not exactly comforting. But here's the thing. Nobody wants the island to appear now, because they don't know who'd get it. The moment it surfaces, the real estate squabble resumes. And in the 21st century, that could mean more than just polite letters. Modern territorial claims bring in maritime borders, fishing rights, oil exploration licenses, and surveillance infrastructure. A new island here could shift the balance of power in the entire Mediterranean basin. And that, apparently, is not something the world is eager to negotiate during a Tuesday morning staff meeting. So the island doesn't rise. Not yet. Maybe it's shy. Or maybe the earth is just being diplomatic. You sit back down, letting your feet dangle off the edge of the boat. Below, hundreds of meters of water separate you from a rock shelf that almost, but not quite, became the next Ferdinandea. You wonder what it would have looked like. A sloped basalt cone? A black beach? Maybe a flat platform perfect for a tiny cafe with overpriced gelato and world's shortest hiking trail. You'd call it Return Island. Or maybe Flag Rock, depending on who gets there first. You shake your head. It's silly, but not far from reality. Back in 2002, just to be safe, the Italian Navy sent divers to place a plaque on the seafloor above Empedocles. It reads, roughly translated, "This is Italian territory. In case of emergence, notify Rome." You wonder if they have someone on standby for that call. "Sir, the volcano's back." "Which one?" "The one with the plaque." Sigh. "Get the flags." You smile at the thought and lie back on the deck. The sky is turning a deeper shade of blue, and a few stars peek through the fading light. The sea is calm, deceptively so. You close your eyes and listen to the faint creaking of the boat, the water lapping softly against the hull, and beneath it all, a low, constant hum. The kind of sound that tells you something is waiting. The sea darkens. Not with storm clouds or volcanic ash this time, just the easy fall of night, wrapping the water in a soft indigo hush. Your boat drifts silently now, rocking on the gentle breath of the ocean. You lie back and look up. There are stars, a lot of them. Somewhere below you, islands are trying to be born. Not just one, not even a dozen. Hundreds, maybe thousands of submerged peaks stretch across the ocean floor, each a dormant or retired volcano. Some are ancient, some are growing, some just stalled out, frozen in geological adolescence. They're called seamounts, and they're the almost islands. You sit up, glance at your map, then look out over the black water, where one such seamount, the tropic seamount, rises invisibly beneath you. From the surface, it's just ocean. But beneath, a broad mountain of rock, stretching up from the depths. Its peak only a few hundred meters below the surface. Close. So close. You drop a weighted line into the water. It goes down for what feels like forever, then stops with a dull tug. Solid. You imagine what it would feel like if right now it rose just a bit more. Just enough to break the surface and start breathing air. Would it steam? Would it crack and hiss and call birds to its shoulders? Maybe. Or maybe it would do nothing at all. Maybe it would just sit there, existing, a new thing on a very old planet. Scientists still argue about how many seamounts are out there. Estimates vary wildly. Some say 50,000. Others say we've only mapped 20% of the ocean floor well enough to be sure. Some seamounts are flat-topped, called guyots, which suggests they used to be islands, worn down by time and tide, then drowned when sea levels rose. You imagine them now, former peaks and coastlines, home to birds, maybe even early humans or animals, now silent beneath kilometers of water. It's like the ocean keeps a scrapbook of forgotten lands down there, pressed flat and sealed under pressure. You drift off slightly, just a blink, not quite sleep, and dream of islands gasping for breath beneath the sea. Just a little more push, just a little more heat. They're trying. The boat rocks. You wake and stretch, feeling stiff. There's nothing around for miles. No land, no ships, just you and whatever's underneath. You fire up the sonar. The machine beeps and chirps as the scan pulses downward. Soon, an image forms, pixelated but clear enough. A cone, wide and rising, its peak sharp. The kind of shape you could mistake for a volcano, because it is one. Not extinct, just paused. Welcome to a place between presence and absence. There's something unsettling about seamounts. They're there, but they're not there. They're the geological equivalent of ghosts. Most will never rise above the waves. They'll sit quietly, hosting strange deep-sea creatures, becoming anchors for ecosystems few humans will ever see. But sometimes they shift. You remember reading about Kickham Jenny, a submarine volcano near Grenada in the Caribbean. It's active, burping gas, quaking now and then. It's risen and sunk multiple times, but hasn't yet breached the surface fully. Every few decades, it gets a little closer. Locals keep one nervous eye on it, just in case. Evacuation plans exist for something that technically doesn't exist. You jot a note in your weather-warped journal. Kickham Jenny, strong name, rude volcano, likes surprises. The ocean sighs. You feel it rather than hear it. The way the boat shifts, how the air cools suddenly. There's a pressure down here, not just physically, but psychologically, like you're near something that wants to happen. You peer over the edge of the boat again and imagine a scene. The water starts to bubble. A plume of steam rises. Then boom. Black rock shoots upward, crusted with barnacles and crowned with flame. A seabird shrieks. You spill your coffee. But no, nothing breaks the surface, not yet. That's the cruel truth of the almost islands. They're everywhere, but they're polite, patient. They wait until you're distracted, until your back is turned, until the mapmaker is asleep. And then, maybe they rise. You stretch again, watching a few flecks of sea foam drift past. Somewhere below, there are volcanic ridges taller than Mount Everest. They're just underwater, so nobody sings songs about them. They get no national parks, no postcards, but they're real. They just missed their moment in the spotlight. A quirky tidbit? There's a whole class of mistaken islands that were seamounts until someone got confused. For example, Bermeja, off the coast of Mexico. It was charted for centuries, appeared in maps, even showed up in oil negotiations, until modern sonar scans couldn't find it. It's either gone, never existed, or is hiding just under the waves with a smug smile. You scribble in your journal again. Bermeja, equal sign Schrodinger's island, both real and not. The stars above are brighter now. The moon is hanging low and quiet, casting a silvery path across the ocean. You follow it with your eyes, imagining all the invisible giants beneath that light. Silent mountains crouch just below the surface, waiting for their moment. Or maybe content to stay hidden. Some geologists think that if tectonic uplift increases in certain regions, say near Tonga or along the mid-Atlantic ridge, some of these seamounts could eventually breach in a few decades or centuries or never. There's no schedule. The Earth doesn't run on one. You lie back down on the deck, arms behind your head, rocking with the ocean's pulse. It's like being held by something ancient, something that doesn't care if you're awake or asleep, something that could, at any second, give you a brand new island, or take one away. You whisper into the night, just in case someone down there's listening. I'm here when you're ready. Dawn slides in quietly, not in a rush, just a soft gradient peeling back the dark. The sea is smooth now, like a silk sheet stretched over secrets. You wake with a stiff neck and salt-dusted skin, still stretched out on the deck, and for a moment you forget where you are. Then you remember the dream. A black pillar rising from the sea. Smoke, flame, thunder, and then silence. Not a bad metaphor, you think, for what's waiting on the horizon now. You adjust the sails, figuratively anyway, since this boat drives itself when you're in dreamland, and turn toward a spot marked with a simple name on your battered chart, Anak Krakatoa, Child of Krakatoa. And no, this isn't just any volcanic island. This one comes with lineage, infamy even. Its parent was the equivalent of a rock star exploding mid-tour, leaving behind a reputation, a crater, and an awkward hole in the guest list. You're sailing into the heart of fire's family tree. In 1883, Krakatoa exploded so violently that it literally shook the world. The blast was heard more than 3,000 miles away. Entire islands disappeared. Tsunamis rolled across the Indian Ocean. The sky changed color. Global temperatures dropped. Sunset paintings got really dramatic for a while. What was left? Not much. Just a shattered caldera, surrounded by silence and death. But the Earth doesn't mourn the way we do. In 1927, 44 years after the original eruption, bubbles began to surface in the waters of the Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra. Then steam, then ash. Then, as if summoned by grief or spite or both, a new island emerged. They named it Anak Krakatoa, Child of Krakatoa. You sail toward it now, and the air starts to shift. There's a strange smell again. Not just sulfur, but something heavier, metallic. The water churns near the hull in unnatural rhythms, as if the sea knows what's waiting ahead. Soon, the cone appears. Low clouds shroud the upper slope. It's smaller than its infamous parent, but it's growing. It always has been. Little tantrums, small eruptions, belches of gas. Anak Krakatoa is a teenager, moody and unpredictable. You dock at a tiny inlet carved by lava flow, boots crunching on dark ash as you step ashore. The ground feels alive, not hot, but warm in a way that hints at things best left undisturbed. You begin your climb. The landscape is scarred and beautiful. Smooth ropes of lava twist over jagged cliffs. Steam rises from cracks like sighs. There's no vegetation, not up here. Down near the shore, yes, a few ferns and palms have crept in. But this slope, this is a place where things burn. And yet, people come here. Researchers, photographers, curious fools. Some say it's to study the earth. Others say it's to feel something real, raw and ancient. Something that doesn't care about phone signals, or rent, or politics. You get that now. Halfway up the cone, you pause to rest. Below, the sea glimmers dully under a gray morning sky. No birds, no boats. Just the slow rumble of something too deep to name. A quirky fact. In 2018, Anak Krakatoa erupted again. Not its biggest, but deadly nonetheless. Part of the volcano's flank collapsed into the sea, triggering a tsunami that struck without warning. Over 400 people died. The volcano didn't roar this time. It whispered. It just slid into the water. And even then, it changed the world. You press your hand to the rock beside you. It's coarse and sharp. Basalt, born in a flash. A stone that didn't used to be here, but now is. Maybe temporarily, maybe not. Scientists still argue about Anak Krakatoa's future. Some believe it will keep growing, inch by inch, until it becomes a giant in its own right. Others predict more collapses, more violent reshaping, more half-formed identities. The volcano doesn't care. It doesn't need to be understood. It just exists. Loudly, you reach the summit just as a light tremor rolls beneath your feet. It's subtle. You barely register it. But the birds do. A small flock of gulls lifts from a lower ridge and disappears into the fog. You sit near the crater rim and peer inside. It's not lava you see. It's shadow. Deep, uneven. The kind of black that makes you feel like you're peering into a memory rather than a hole in the ground. Wind whistles across the edge. You can smell minerals and silence. There's something unnerving about being up here, alone, on a place that didn't exist a century ago. It feels like squatting in a stranger's house, one with a temper, one who might, at any moment, remind you whose name is on the deed. And yet, you feel welcomed in a cautious, geological way. You lie back on a patch of solid rock and watch steam rise into the pale morning sky. Below, the waves lap the shore of a growing island. An island that once wasn't, then was, then wasn't again, and now very much is. No maps will capture this version of it perfectly. By the time satellites update their imaging, it'll have changed shape again. That's the deal with volcanic children. They grow, they destroy, they rebuild. And sometimes they bury their history beneath new layers, daring you to dig. You close your eyes and whisper something to the mountain, something you won't remember later. Maybe thanks, maybe warning. It doesn't matter. Anak Krakatoa doesn't respond. It's busy becoming itself. You descend Anak Krakatoa slowly, each step careful on loose volcanic gravel. The slope crumbles just enough to make you wonder if the island's shifting beneath you, because honestly, it might be. By the time you reach the blackened shoreline again, you're coated in fine ash and sunburned in patches that are going to be awkward later. You peel off your boots, sit on a warm rock, and look out over the sea. It's empty again, but you know better now. Empty ocean is never truly empty. You plot your next course, westward into the vast Pacific, toward waters that once fooled entire empires. The age of exploration was messy, ships zigzagging across the globe, sailors with questionable compasses, cartographers sketching coastlines they'd only heard about secondhand. The maps of the 16th to 19th centuries weren't documents. They were rumors on paper. And in that chaos of lines and guesses, phantom islands appeared. You're sailing into that ghost fleet now. Imagine this. You're a 1700s navigator. You're sunburnt, half blind from staring at the sea, laden, and very much out of snacks. You spot a smudge on the horizon, maybe a rock, maybe a cloud, and you shout, "Land ho!" before anyone can argue. By the time you sail closer and realize it was nothing, it's too embarrassing to admit. So you log it. And just like that, a new island appears on the map. You arrive at the coordinates of one such mystery, Sandy Island, once marked in the Coral Sea, west of New Caledonia. It was included in maps for over a century, black speck, 24 kilometers long, sometimes labeled Île de Sable. Then, in 2012, a team of Australian scientists went to visit it with modern instruments and found nothing, not even a shallow reef, just deep, empty water. It vanished like a magician's coin, except the magician was Earth, and the audience was annoyed scientists with expensive equipment. You pause the boat, drop a weighted probe, and wait. It sinks, and sinks, and sinks. Hundreds of meters, no seafloor, no sandbar, just dark ocean. The mystery deepens, literally. So how did Sandy Island make it onto maps in the first place? Possibly a floating pumice raft mistaken for land. Or a cartographic mix-up. Someone transposed coordinates and gave a different reef a new name. Maybe even a deliberate fake, added to prevent plagiarism. Old map makers did that sometimes, inserted a fake place to catch copycats. Cheeky. You scribble in your journal, Sandy Island, missing, possibly imaginary. Excellent commitment to the bit. It wasn't the only one. There's Friesland, supposedly located south of Iceland, shown in dozens of 16th century maps. It had towns, rivers, forests, all imagined. Nobody ever landed there. Nobody ever saw it again. And High Brazil, a mythical island west of Ireland, often shrouded in fog, said to appear once every 7 years. You smile. That one at least had style. You float through fog now. Real fog. Thick enough to erase the horizon. Soft enough to feel like you're sailing through someone's half-remembered dream. In it, you can almost see the outlines of phantom islands, distant coasts that never were, mountains drawn by candlelight and guesswork. Scientists still argue over how many of these islands were actual volcanic upthrusts, land that emerged briefly and then eroded, just like Home Reef or Surtsey might one day do. Others insist they were all just errors, tricks of light, driftwood hallucinations. But some might have been real. The Pacific is littered with former islands that have since sunk due to subsidence, where the volcanic base cools and contracts, slowly pulling the island back beneath the waves. Atolls are the leftovers, coral rings surrounding lagoons where volcanoes used to be. That's right, the pretty postcards with turquoise waters and bungalows. You're looking at ghost islands wearing reef makeup. You pass near one now, Bikini Atoll. Its calm waters hiding a catastrophic history. From 1946 to 1958, the U.S. detonated 23 nuclear devices here, testing bombs that scarred the seafloor and obliterated sections of reef. Some of the islands literally disappeared. Others were blown into bizarre, unrecognizable shapes. Today, coral regrows, Fish return. But the land remains radioactive. Beautiful, deadly, borrowed time. You don't stop here. Further west, more ghosts whisper from the sea. Islands once claimed by captains and kings, now stripped from charts. One moment, disputed territory. The next, a blank spot on the GPS. It's easy to forget that maps are fiction dressed in measurement. Just because it's on paper doesn't mean it's there. And just because it's not doesn't mean it wasn't. You think of a quote from a sailor you once met in a dockside bar. Some islands don't sink. They just hide. You kind of believe him. You push on, charting your own path across this phantasmic ocean, wondering how many explorers mistook a wave shadow or a shoal for salvation. How many gave a name to something that never asked for one? And how many islands are still down there, just waiting for the right moment to rise, briefly, brilliantly before vanishing again? You close your eyes. The fog drapes over the boat like a curtain. You let it. You're not afraid of phantom islands anymore. You're starting to feel like one. The fog lifts slowly, like a curtain opening after a long intermission. You find yourself back under a clean sky, the sea stretching wide and blank beneath. But this time, you're not here to chase ghosts. You're here to understand them. What exactly makes an island rise? And more interestingly, what allows it to rise again after disappearing? The ocean may be relentless, but the earth plays the long game, and every so often, it reboots its own geography. You reach into the cabin and pull out a notebook stuffed with diagrams, sketches, and slightly damp snack wrappers. This next part is science, but don't worry, we'll keep it soft and cozy, like geology in pajamas. You're drifting over an area called the Tongan Arc, a hot zone of volcanic activity where tectonic plates aren't just moving, they're fighting. This is where the Pacific Plate is sliding under the Indo-Australian Plate in a fiery game of tectonic hide-and-seek. And in this messy overlap, new islands are born, but some are reborn. To understand that, you need to picture the Earth not as a solid shell, but as a layered cake filled with jam that's constantly boiling. The crust, thin, fragile, floats atop the mantle, which seethes with currents of heat and pressure. When magma finds a weak spot in the crust, it punches through like soup boiling over. Voila, island. But the process isn't linear. Sometimes an island rises, collapses into itself, then slowly rebuilds from repeated eruptions. This is exactly what happened with Bogoslav Island in the Aleutians. Born in the 1700s, gone, then reborn in 2016, with dramatic plumes and a totally new profile. It's geology with a flair for rebranding. You drop a sonar buoy into the water and listen. The readout chirps faintly, showing a ridge beneath you swelling upward, a submarine volcano. Quiet now, but likely not forever. A quirky note. Some of the fastest growing islands have reappeared in the exact same coordinates as previous ones. It's like the Earth forgot it already tried that spot and went, let's try again, but this time, bigger. Volcanologists call this episodic emergence, and it's like a natural version of hitting the retry button. You scribble in your notebook, retry, tectonic addition, save game, YN. Scientists still argue about which conditions favor island regrowth. Some point to magma composition, whether it's basaltic, runny and fast, or andesitic, thick and explosive. Others emphasize hydrothermal systems, those scalding underwater geysers that hint at deep pressure and hidden reservoirs of magma. Then there's structural integrity, Was the first island too ash-heavy? Too steep? Built like a geological house of cards? The truth is usually, yes. But here's the twist. Sometimes, even if the island doesn't resurface, the land underneath remains active, expanding and rising just out of sight. Think of it as an iceberg's grumpy sibling. All volcano, no visibility. Just seething, waiting, preparing for its third act. You make tea and lean back against the rail, letting your mind wander. It drifts to Yolnir, a lesser-known sibling of Surtsey, born during the same Icelandic eruption in the 1960s. It broke the surface with flare, fountains of lava, columns of smoke, and then eroded into nothing. But recent satellite imagery suggests part of it might be coming back. It's like a deleted scene from a movie reappearing in the sequel's credits. You wonder if islands miss being islands. You reach into your bag and pull out a sample of basalt you picked up from that brief landform 2 days ago, the one already sinking. The rock is pitted, light, flecked with obsidian glass. It smells like history. You hold it up to the sky, wondering how long it will last above sea level. If you left it on a beach, the tide would eat it in a week. But here, in your hand, it endures a little longer. You sail further west, passing through areas where artificial sonar maps have redacted more than they've revealed. There are underwater slopes with steep scars, evidence of sector collapse, a fancy term for when half a volcano decides it's had enough and just slides into the sea. That's what happened to Anak Krakatoa, remember? Half the island fell into the water in 2018, causing that deadly tsunami. But within a year, the volcano started rebuilding itself. New lava, new shape, new peak. It didn't just recover. It came back weirder. That's the thing. Islands don't return the same. They regrow like scars. Familiar, but twisted. The Earth is always editing. You chart your course toward another reborn rock, Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai. It emerged in 2015 between two older islands in Tonga, forming from an eruption that spat ash and lava high into the atmosphere. At first, scientists gave it a lifespan of a few months. But the thing stuck around, even started growing. Until, of course, it blew itself apart in 2022 in what was one of the most powerful eruptions ever recorded from space. Hunga Tonga rose, built itself a name, and then exited the stage with a mic drop. A classic arc. You slow the boat now, letting it drift over calm seas. There's no island here today, but the sea feels full, pregnant with possibility. Below you, pressure builds. Tectonic plates grind. Magma collects. You imagine the first crack, the first bubble, the first spark. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next week. Maybe long after you're gone. But it's coming. And when it does, it might not just rise. It might return. The ocean is flat again. Almost suspiciously so. You sip tea on the deck while the world holds its breath. After chasing eruptions, ghosts, and sunken kingdoms, this stillness feels out of character. But you're not here for drama this time. You're going back to a place you've already seen. Surtsey. It's been a few dreamy nights since you first landed there, back in Section 4. You remember the heat, the ash, the silence. Back then, it was all steam and newborn rage. Now it's growing up. You land again near the western shore. It's changed. Not dramatically, but enough to make you blink. You see life. Tufts of moss and low grasses ripple in the wind. Gulls shriek from a nearby cliff. The ground, once jagged and lifeless, now hosts the slow crawl of ecosystems setting up camp. It's like nature finally unpacked its bags and decided to stay. You climb the same ridge you stood on last time. The view is greener now, earth-toned. There are patches of soil, real soil, not just crushed lava. That's thanks to the birds mostly. Puffins, fulmars, Arctic terns. They nest here, poop everywhere, and help fertilize the next generation of plant life. There's a strange joy in that. You walk gently between the patches of grass, careful not to crush the lichens. They're slow-growing and stubborn, like little botanical introverts. Each speck of green here is a victory, a flag planted in defiance of ash. A quirky detail: the very first flowering plant to bloom on Surtsey wasn't something noble or rare. It was a sea rocket, a scrappy coastal weed with zero chill and a fondness for bad soil. It didn't ask permission. It just showed up. You pass a wooden stake in the ground, a scientific marker. There are dozens of them here now. Researchers from Iceland and abroad have been tracking this place since the 1960s, documenting every inch of change. They know the names of every plant, every bug, every mold. Surtsey is one of the few places on Earth where we can watch nature reboot from scratch. You find a sheltered spot on the lee side of the cone and sit. The wind whistles softly, but the sulfur smell is mostly gone now. The island isn't angry anymore. It's evolving, and not just biologically, geologically too. Some of the crater walls have collapsed into themselves, reshaping the peak. Old lava tubes have caved in. The island has shrunk a little on the seaward edge, thanks to relentless erosion. But at its core, Surtsey remains solid. Its heart is basalt, hard, dense, unwilling to bow to waves without a fight. Scientists still argue over how long Surtsey will last. Early guesses gave it a few decades, then a century. Now, some models suggest parts of it may remain for thousands of years, slowly transitioning from volcanic infant to permanent fixture on Iceland's map. And yet, it's not untouched. You glance toward the far side of the island, where a forbidden footprint was once discovered. Human, small, deliberate. Someone broke the rules and landed here without clearance, leaving a single track in the ash. It caused a minor scandal among scientists. The island was meant to be pristine, a baseline for life without interference. That footprint? It was a reminder that we're rarely capable of keeping our distance. But you understand the temptation. You feel it now, standing here. The urge to claim something, even just with your shoes. To say, I was here, even if the land doesn't care, even if it might vanish someday. You walk the southern edge, where new grasses cling to the slope. A puffin eyes you from its burrow, tilts its head, and decides you're not worth the trouble. Fair. You kneel and touch the ground. It's soft, not just from the moss, but from time. The island is maturing, still young, still volatile in places, but inching toward stability, toward identity. You take a small flat stone from the shore, not to keep, just to examine. It's glassy, dark, and surprisingly smooth. It was once part of an eruption column, flung skyward from the vent like a firework. Now it's been rolled by surf, polished by years, turned into something gentle. You return it to the sea. As you walk back toward your boat, you pass a small dip in the landscape where a shallow pond has formed. Rainwater collected in a crater, too deep to evaporate fully. now home to a few species of algae. It's not dramatic, not flashy, but it's the beginning of something. You pause at the boat's edge and take one last look, not at the volcano, but at the ecosystem, at the birds nesting, at the soil forming, at the green fuzz that says, I am here, I belong. Surtsey no longer feels like a science experiment. It feels like a person you've watched grow up. Awkward and explosive at first, but now figuring out who they want to be. You smile. Let them argue about timelines and erosion rates. You've stood on the rock. You've seen the moss. You know the truth. This island is alive. The sea wraps around you once more as you leave Surtsey behind. It's gentler now, less like something trying to swallow the world, and more like a blanket someone forgot to fold. You settle into the boat's slow rhythm, watching the island fade into mist. But this next destination isn't natural at all. Because sometimes, when the Earth isn't in the mood to make new land, humans do it instead. You set your course east, toward the Arabian Peninsula, where ambition has done something absurd. It's built islands from scratch, not with magma, but with money. Welcome to Dubai, where if nature won't give you an island, you build a palm tree in the sea and fill it with luxury hotels, infinity pools, and real estate speculation. You dock near Palm Jumeirah, a perfectly symmetrical palm-shaped island jutting into the Persian Gulf, its fronds lined with villas and yachts. It's artificial, precise, the kind of island that wouldn't know how to erupt if it tried. You step off and immediately feel the shift. The ground is solid, sure, but it doesn't feel earned. It's not forged in fire or pushed up by tectonic defiance. It's dredged, leveled, engineered, built with GPS-guided sand pumps and reinforced with breakwaters shaped like question marks. You stroll along one of the outer fronds. The air smells of sunscreen and salt. Golf carts hum quietly past. There's a Starbucks on your left and a Rolls-Royce dealership on your right. Subtle. But beneath all the glamour, there's a quiet war happening. The sea wants this island back. Erosion here isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Since its creation in the early 2000s, Palm Jumeirah has required constant maintenance. Sand shifts, currents carve out trenches. Parts of the island sink by millimeters each year. Salt water seeps through foundations, nibbling at concrete like a bored shark. You pause beside a low wall and look out at the water. The view is stunning, but also unnatural. The horizon feels off, curved, structured, as if someone drew it on with a ruler. Scientists still argue over the long-term sustainability of these artificial islands. Some say they're marvels of engineering, a triumph of human will over nature's limits. Others say they're just temporary monuments to hubris, that in a century, the sea will erase them with the same indifference it showed to Graham Island, or Home Reef, or the countless volcanic cones it's eaten alive. And then there's the issue of sinking. Studies show parts of Dubai's coast, including its man-made islands, are subsiding. Slowly, silently, like a city with its pockets too full, pulling its pants down centimeter by centimeter. You climb a viewing platform for a better look. From up here, the island's shape really comes into focus. It's almost absurd. Too clean, too balanced. Nature doesn't do symmetry like this. Only humans do. Just offshore, you spot another project, the World Islands, a collection of 300 tiny artificial islets shaped like a crude map of Earth. Greenland, Australia, France, all recreated in sand and seawalls. A billionaire's fantasy gone soggy. Here's the quirky part. Many of those islands were never finished. Some remain barren. A few were built and abandoned. One was briefly turned into a party island. Another had a single house before the project stalled. Several now sit half-submerged, sinking slowly while the marketing brochures pretend otherwise. You imagine explaining this to a puffin from Surtsey. You built an island shaped like England? Yeah. Why? Unclear. It's not that these islands aren't impressive. They are. The engineering alone is staggering. But they don't breathe the way volcanic islands do. They don't grow, evolve, collapse, or return. They just exist. Held together by maintenance contracts and optimism, you walk the outer crescent, where waves lap against enormous boulders, placed there to slow erosion. It's a fragile piece. The sea pushing, the stones holding the line. You can hear it in every splash. There's a phrase in architecture, designing against decay. But here, it feels more like delaying the inevitable. You pause at a quiet edge of the island, away from the resorts and brunch menus. The sun dips lower, casting a golden sheen over the water. You dip a hand in. It's warm, familiar. The same sea that shaped Surtsey and crushed Ferdinandea is lapping gently at this artificial paradise. It doesn't care that this island cost billions. It doesn't care about symmetry. It just waits. You jot down a line in your journal. Man-made islands are like sand castles with better PR. As night falls, lights flicker on across the island. Neon, LEDs, shimmering pools lit from below. But you keep your gaze on the sea, because beneath that glow, the story doesn't change. Even here, where humans carved out land from nothing, the ocean is still in charge. And it always remembers. You leave the glitter of Dubai behind, its islands still glowing in the rear view, like a mirage that somehow paid taxes. Back at sea, the air cools. The water changes color again, darker now, steelier. Less poolside champagne, more serious tectonic business. You're headed east again across the Pacific, chasing another island that refused to follow the script, one that didn't just appear once or twice, but over and over. It's called Nishinoshima, and it's Japan's lava baby with a rebellion problem. You slow the boat as a hazy shape appears on the horizon, smoke rising in thin curls from a sloped black cone, waves breaking against fresh lava shores. From a distance, it looks harmless, almost sleepy. It is not. You step ashore onto rough, uneven ground. It crunches beneath your boots like charcoal underfoot. This island is new, and old, and new again. See, Nishinoshima existed before. It was a tiny, inactive rock outcropping for years, barely the size of a school campus. Then in 1973, a surprise underwater eruption nearby caused a new island to form. Everyone assumed it would vanish. Instead, it merged with the original. Cue headlines. Cue confused birds. But that wasn't the end. In 2013, Nishinoshima erupted again, this time from within. Lava poured out, expanding its footprint, creating beaches where there were none, snuffing out the surrounding reef in an aggressive puff of steam. Over the next few years, it doubled, tripled, then quintupled in size. Geologists joked it was going through a rebellious teen phase, except teens don't shoot lava 600 meters into the sky. You climb a gentle ridge and sit on a cooled lava flow. The air smells like iron and ozone with a hint of regret. Below you, the island continues to grow, slowly, methodically. Eruptions happen without warning. Some are flashy, others more like indigestion. But the message is clear. I'm not done yet. Scientists still argue about Nishinoshima's long-term stability. Will it collapse into a caldera like on at Krakatoa? Will it fizzle out and erode? Or will it settle into full adulthood and make friends with GPS? Right now, it's an adolescent. Volcanically volatile, emotionally unavailable, gloriously unpredictable. You crouch and run your hand along a rock edge. It's still warm, not hot enough to cook breakfast, but hot enough to remind you not to get too comfortable. Cracks fissure the surface, tiny tremors shuddering beneath every few minutes. The island breathes in exhalations of gas and smoke, and yet life is trying. On the eastern side, you spot a few stubborn patches of green, moss again, and seabirds, the brave, hungry kind that see a smoking hellscape and think, perfect place to raise kids. You watch them nest in crevices, dive for fish, hop around tiny tide pools formed where lava met ocean. The contrast is absurd. Fragile life clinging to rock that could erupt again any minute, and yet it works. A quirky fact. One scientist studying Nishinoshima got emotional describing it. It's like watching a child walk for the first time, he said, but the child keeps setting your lab on fire. You take out your notebook and sketch a rough map of the current shoreline. By the time someone reads it, the island will have changed again. Erosion, eruption, expansion. It never stops. Even satellites can't keep up. Google Earth might show an old version. Japan's Coast Guard has a newer one. Neither is right for long. That's the magic and frustration of living land. Nishinoshima isn't content with stability. It's not waiting for consensus. It erupts on weekends, ruins maps for fun, and dares you to predict its next move. And here's the kicker. It's not even alone. Nearby are other volcanic islands, some dormant, some grumbling. The entire Izu-Bonin Mariana Arc is one of Earth's most active geological belts, a chain of volcanic seamounts and islands that are constantly shifting, merging, splitting or disappearing. You sit quietly and watch a faint plume rise from a distant ridge. Another vent, maybe, or just steam. Who knows? The Earth knows. You jot down a thought. Nishinoshima equals sign Earth's version of a reboot. Every time it crashes, it updates. And that's not entirely wrong. Some scientists now think this cycle, collapse, regrow, expand, collapse again, is part of a larger natural rhythm. Not failure, not accident, just Earth testing new builds. You walk back down toward the sea, watching your shadow stretch across the black sand. It's late now. The light is soft. The waves lap gently against the youngest beach you've ever stood on. Rock that didn't exist a year ago, maybe even a month ago. You bend down and pick up a smooth lava pebble, its surface pocked and glistening in the last light. It's surprisingly light, filled with trapped air from its hasty creation. You turn it over in your palm, then let it fall back onto the beach with a quiet clink. The island doesn't notice. It's too busy becoming. You step onto the boat and push off, watching the smoke tower drift lazily into the dusk behind you. The cone dims, but it doesn't sleep. It never really sleeps. And tomorrow, it might not be an island at all. It might be two. You drift now, further than you've ever gone in this journey. The sea is glass, the air is warm and thick with salt, and the stars, those same stars that watched over Krakatoa, Ferdinandea, Surtsey, Nishinoshima, they blink above you in patient indifference. This is the final stop. But there's no island here. Not yet. You're lying on the deck of your boat, staring up, with nothing around you but water stretching for what feels like forever. The GPS reads 0. The horizon is a line you can't quite trust, and the engine is off. You're just floating. Because sometimes, to understand islands that rise and fall, you need to remember, it's all temporary. You close your eyes and imagine it, right beneath your boat, miles below. The crust is cracking. A plume of magma, rising slowly from the mantle, is searching for weakness. The tectonic plates above it shift almost imperceptibly, making room. Pressure builds. Temperature spikes. You're above a future island. You don't know its name. No one does yet. But it's forming, even now, quietly, unseen. It may not surface for a year, a century, a millennium, but when it does, someone will stand on it. Someone will breathe its sulfur air and feel the warmth beneath their souls and wonder if it will last. Maybe it'll grow fast, like Surtsey, and become a scientific haven. Maybe it'll collapse into the sea within days, like ephemeral home reef. Maybe it'll explode like Anak Krakatoa and change the sky itself. Or maybe, like so many others, it will rise and vanish before anyone even knows it was here. You roll onto your side and watch a piece of driftwood float by. A long, curved branch, bleached white by sun and salt. It moves lazily in the current, heading somewhere you'll never see. That's how it works. Islands come and go. Some are born in fire, others in finance. Some die with a scream, others with a shrug, but none of them stay forever. And that includes this one. You pull your knees to your chest and smile softly. You've walked on lava younger than your favorite t-shirt. You've stood where emperors once fought over land now erased. You've seen islands grow their own green eyebrows and others shrink back into watery graves. Scientists still argue whether islands truly die or just change states. Some insist nothing is ever lost, just submerged, folded, buried. Others believe we'll one day uncover old islands like fossils, risen from the deep by tectonic uplift or climate shifts. They're probably both right. The earth recycles everything, even land. You sit up, stretch, and pour the last of your tea into the sea. A toast. To the islands you visited, the ones you've imagined, and the ones you'll never meet. You let the silence settle again. Then you hear it, a distant, deep rumble, maybe thunder, maybe tectonic movement, maybe just the sea reminding you that it's always, always doing something, even when it looks like it's not. And so, under a sky smeared with stars and silence, you let yourself be still. No island rises tonight, not here, but one will, one day. Maybe not for you, but for someone else. A new traveler, a new story. And when it does, it'll feel like magic, like a miracle, like something no one saw coming, even though it's been happening this way all along. You lie back one last time and watch the stars ripple slightly in the water's reflection. And for the first time all night, you don't want to chase the next island. You just want to rest. You feel it now. The weight of sleep softening your thoughts, pulling your breath into a slower rhythm. The ocean no longer stretches wide in front of you. It rocks gently beneath you, steady and calm. That same sea that devoured islands and carried your boat from story to story now feels like a cradle. The wind eases into a whisper. The stars settle into place. You think back on the places you visited, each one a flicker of land and fire and time. Some just barely held together, others stubbornly rising, no matter how many times they were knocked down. They all shared something, a kind of graceful impermanence, proof that the earth is never finished, that nothing is ever static, and that change, whether slow or sudden, is part of everything, just like your own breath. In and out, in and out. You picture the last island, the one still forming beneath the waves. You won't see it rise, not tonight, but it's there, quiet, waiting. And when it does arrive, it won't announce itself. It'll just be, like sleep, like dreams. You adjust your blanket, maybe tuck a pillow under your head. The room is quiet now. Or maybe it's the ocean still in your ears. Either way, you let your body relax completely, from the crown of your scalp to the tips of your toes. The journey's over, for now. And the sea, it's still out there. But tonight, you don't need to chase it. Just drift. Sleep well.